So what we're looking at here are the two main outcome measures that look at the change in muscle size, or the change in percentage 1RM, or the percentage change in 1RM, the change in strength, plotted over different volumes. Now, an important thing and a really cool thing that Remmert and colleagues did, and that was also done in a few other of their meta-analyses, which I'll talk about, is that they decided to count weekly sets in a specific way that was actually based upon the data that we see in the research. Specifically, they looked at different modeling techniques to see whether or not a direct or a fractional set counting method more accurately fit the data. A direct set style of counting is what was done previously in meta-analyses in the past, in the last decade, where every single set, if it trained a given muscle group, or if it was training a muscle group in a given movement, counted on a one-to-one basis for that volume. Meaning if you were doing leg press or leg extensions, those would both count towards, say, a leg press 1RM that was done at the end of the study. And likewise, say in a hypertrophy example, if you were doing bench press, that would be counted as a set for both the triceps and the chest if those were measured via ultrasound at the end of the study. A fractional set counting method, however, is simply that the synergist or non-primary mover is not counted on a one-to-one basis, but it's counted ultimately as half a set, even though it varied study to study by how much in each one of those studies it seemed to fit the data, whether it was 0.4 sets, 0.6 sets, etc. But overall, they found that there was a better fit to the data when using the fractional set counting method, which for hypertrophy means that when it's a quote-unquote secondary muscle group, a compound movement count is for half a set for it. That's primarily is going to apply to the biceps and triceps. And for strength, that means if any muscle group was trained by a given movement that is used in the tested movement, say that was tested for 1RM at the end of the study, but not the movement itself, that counts as half a set. So for example, let's say they did a bench press 1RM at the end of the study, but they did tricep pushdowns, front raises, as well as flies, and bench press. Only the bench press would count as one set. All of those others would count as half a set. So when they looked at the relationship between fractional sets per week, as well as percentage changes in muscle size, as well as percentage changes in 1RM, and they used multiple models to see what was the best fit, in both cases they found what we would describe as a diminishing returns relationship, meaning as more volume was done, there were increases in strength and muscle size. However, the per set return on investment diminished as you did higher and higher and higher volumes. And these are studies that on average lasted 10 weeks, and it's important to acknowledge that they are lab-based studies. So these may not represent what's going on in the real world, and that's a seed I'm planting for a future slide. But an important difference between the relationship in muscle size and strength with volume is that the diminishing returns relationship was far steeper, meaning that it was tapering earlier for strength. You can see that the line starts to get flat right around 4, 5, or 6 sets. And I have denoted these points with the key on both of these figure panels, A and B. And you can see that they come down to how efficient is the training, right? And at what point is the uncertainty in the model too high for us to be confident that even though the model predicts greater hypertrophy or greater strength with more sets, that ultimately we can't be sure of that without more data on high volume approaches. So as you can see here, the volume that you can get by the time that you start to get diminishing returns that are so uncertain we're not actually sure it's improving strength anymore is a lot lower for strength. And that probably is because of these are short-term studies. They're looking at many less trained individuals, so the primary thing that's driving strength is going to be those initial motor learning adaptations. And often in studies we're doing things like leg press, chest press, and not necessarily highly skilled movements. So that means that you don't need as many sets or as much volume to enhance those early stage adaptations. So right around 5 sets per week on a given movement, that's fractional sets. That means if you're not just doing that same movement, that's more total work than is being shown if you're thinking about it in a direct set counting method, is all that's necessary to start to maximize the adaptations over the short term in strength. And I emphasize short term very intentionally, because we have clear data now in 2026 that indeed larger muscles over time, as they grow, do contribute to the strength gains we get. And that probably is a more dominant aspect of strength gains the more trained you get and the less motor learning you have left to do on a given movement, especially on more simple movements. And that's where we're now going to shift towards the relationship between volume and hypertrophy. Here we can see kind of a more curvilinear slope where the relationship between sets and muscle size does diminish. And indeed, the uncertainty shown by that shaded area does increase as we move into higher sets because there are fewer studies that evaluate very, very high volume protocols. But nonetheless, there is this diminishing returns relationship, but there's a higher point before you start to see this diminishing returns and uncertainty to where we can't be confident that higher volumes are no longer beneficial. And what we see here is that it takes about roughly 4 sets per week to have measurable hypertrophy, just meaning that with whatever measurement device was used in that study, be it ultrasound or some other scanning technique, which is all that was used here, not body composition, say hydrostatic weighing or DEXA, but direct measures of regional hypertrophy. At least 4 sets was required on average to produce measurable hypertrophy, and then for each incremental similar increase in hypertrophy, you had to do more and more and more sets. So around 4 sets, then around 10 sets, and then just short of 20 sets, and then closer to 30 sets before you're getting those similar incremental increases. So you can see that it's starting to curve downward. And also they reported at what point are we really too uncertain to be confident that more sets are going to reliably produce more hypertrophy, and that was right around the 30 set mark. Now that's a lot of volume, especially considering the fractional method. And it's certainly not something that we're recommending, just because you can see that the highest amount of hypertrophy that is certain to occur at a population level occurs at 30 sets. That doesn't mean everyone should be doing 30 sets per muscle group in a full body protocol, because that is a tremendous amount of volume and most people don't have the time for it, nor are they adapted to it. And they'd probably be risking injury with that type of acute, large spike in total workload if they're only used to doing a third of that or less. So this is very population specific. The primary thing to take home here is just understanding this relationship. That yes, volume is closely associated with hypertrophy, but there is an increasing reduction in the return on investment as you do more and more and more. And we're looking at studies that last on average 10 weeks. And in many cases, they're not what we would describe as balanced full body hypertrophy protocols. They're not necessarily a 4-day upper-lower with a similar amount of volume for the upper and lower body, push and pull, glutes and hams, as well as quads. Rather, in many cases, they are looking at a few muscle groups, ones that are often easier to measure via ultrasound, and they have some adjunct training so that the participants in the studies will stay in them because they like to train if they're trained, or if they're untrained, they may be even looking at just a single muscle group. And that is for logistical reasons. So understand that these are not the most ecologically valid studies, so really it helps us understand the theoretical relationship between volume, muscle size, and volume and strength.